At Queer History, we interview queer people and allies who are making a lasting positive change. To support these interviews and documentaries, please like, subscribe, share, and if you have any money to spare, throw it toward our Patreon. If you don't have money to spare, don't worry. We need you more than we need your money, but we still need your money, so...
Breaking news! First thought to only affect women, people across the world are discovering a new power. The ability to generate and manipulate electric charges. The only people who appear to be unable to access this power are the people who insist on a binary division between men and women. Our correspondent on the ground relays this important distinction. What's happening?
Oceana, this breakthrough ability appears to have manifested primarily in people with sustained elevated estrogen. So, of course, it goes to more than women, and there are quite a number of women who do not get this power, not unless they undergo sustained hormone therapy. No estrogen means no electricity powers.
What we're seeing from this footage is that the power dynamics of the world are shifting. Some would even say merely reversing. But if it puts something other than the patriarchy in charge for a while, isn't that worth seeing through to the end? It turns out anyone with the power can activate it in anyone else who shares the potential.
Oceana, I'm not surprised the person who first awakened this power and others was an author. What some are now calling the Great Awakening began in the 1970s. Some think it was the government putting a chemical in the water. Others think it was just a quirk of fate. But we know what really happened. A rather unconventional Orthodox Jewish person named Stephenie Alderman sired a daughter named Naomi. And ever since then, nothing has been the same.
We now turn to Queer History's own special agent defector from the FBI.
Oceana, thanks to our hackers uncovering the Alderman files, we now know Naomi Alderman was educated at South Hampstead High School and Lincoln College, Oxford, where she read philosophy, politics, and economics. After she left Oxford, she worked in children's publishing and then editing publications for a law firm. Boring, you might think, until her early collaboration led to a viral running app in which the user gets chased by zombies. Feeling the burn? Better speed it up or you'll feel the bite. So, it was no surprise when she was working for a nonprofit and, foreshadowing the paradigm-shifting event about to happen, she published her first novel, Disobedience.
To learn more about that novel, we turn to our lore masters.
That's right, Oceana. Whereas people thought the power had to be awakened through an electric shock, it turns out the first manifestation of power came from simply reading Naomi Alderman's books. Take, for example, Naomi's first novel, Disobedience. In the story, a New York photographer flies to London after learning about the death of her estranged father, a well-respected rabbi. She is returning to the same Orthodox Jewish community that shunned her decades earlier for her childhood attraction to a female friend. Their fortuitous and happy reunion soon reignites their burning passion as the two women explore boundaries of faith and sexuality. When the shocking truth about their relationship is revealed, the past and present converge in this award-winning and critically acclaimed novel about the universality of love and faith, and the strength and sacrifice it takes to fight for what you believe in, even when it means disobedience. My loremaster brother Steve uncovered shocking further information.
Disobedience was published in 10 languages, and later adapted into a feature-length film by Oscar-winning director Sébastien Lelio, starring Rachel Weisz and Rachel McAdams. But if there's any doubt about the transformative power of her stories, her novel, The Power, was the winner of the 2017 Bailey Women's Prize for Fiction. It was longlisted for the 2017 Orwell Prize and chosen as one of the best books of the year by the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, NPR, Entertainment Weekly, and the San Francisco Chronicle. The Power topped former President Barack Obama's list of his favorite books from 2017 and has been translated into more than 30 languages.
I'm receiving word from our producer that Naomi Alderman will be joining us for an exclusive interview in just a few moments. Everyone, oh my, if you're watching this, you'll want to keep watching. You may already feel a tingle in your fingertips. A surge of power is waiting to be unleashed. Joining us now is Naomi Alderman to explain how she uses her power to leave a lasting positive impact.
You know, it's very nice that you followed it up. And because, as you know, it's been a bit of a time.
Let me first ask you, are you on any kind of time restriction? I won't take too much time, but just let me know.
I mean, I think if we can be done in about 45 minutes, that would be great, because I actually need to move hotel.
Just over 10 years ago, in a blog post from June 10th, 2012, you said the first run of Buffy, the Vampire Slayer from 97 to 03, also marked the period of your life when you least knew who you were, what you wanted. You said, quote, I just graduated, I was working for a law firm, still an Orthodox Jew, involved in various friendships and romances that just weren't me. And of course, important for your legions of fans, you hadn't yet published your first book. And in all the time, friendships, romances, and accomplishments since then, what do we need to understand about your journey?
Oh, this is a complicated question. I mean, I love it. It's funny to be answering this question back in New York City, where I was living for part of that time. You know, I grew up extremely religious, and I would say that ceasing to be so religious and remaking my life was the big event of my 30s. Like, it took pretty much a decade to come from one way of living and thinking about things to another. And I did not take a new set of values and set of ideas about myself somehow off the peg. I didn't go and, ascribe to, like, I don't know, join a new thing. I think that's something that some people do. Well, now I'm a communist, or now I'm now I'm an like I'm part of this eco warrior group. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, any of that. But I reached a point where I was doing a bunch of stuff in my life that really felt like a completely false self, just a facade. I had to sort of follow my own values. So I started out going, I don't think the way that Orthodox Judaism treats LGBT people is right. And having thought that, just sort of, if you've come from all of this is like decided by God, and how we decide what to do and what to think about things is from like the writings, and of course you can always discuss them, whatever, but like from the writings of scholars, then you have to go, oh God, I've got to rethink everything. It's I'm not going to be able to just go, well, this part I disagree with, but all the rest of it is just like a sweater unraveling, pulling on one thread and going, oh fuck, now I'm naked. And I'm going to have to get a pair of needles and re-knit this whole thing into some kind of new shape. So I guess that's the story about the journey. I still, from time to time, have a sort of strange moment where I go, how am I living this life? This is not what I was supposed to be living. I was supposed to have an arranged marriage and be an Orthodox Jewish like wife. But I think that's normal. I have some other ex-Orthodox friends who we send each other little texts when somebody goes, oh, I just was about to say like a bracha, a blessing on a bacon sandwich, and you go, okay, that's how it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. Wow. Well, if I could just stay in the past for a moment. Now, take me back to the day you learned your first novel would be published, and bring me into the scene like it's an episode of Buffy. Where were you? What were you doing? What was your life like? Who did you talk to? And what impact did that book have on the path you were walking?
Oh my God. What a great question. All right. So that was in July of 2005. And I'd finished the novel. My agent had sent it out to publishers around London, and she had said to me, don't expect to hear anything back from it for a month. So I was living, she sent it on the Friday, right? And I was living in Hendon. I was still an Orthodox Jew. I didn't actually know that that was definitely coming to an end for me, but it was very much coming to an end. But it's kind of like the end of a relationship, where sometimes you just wake up one morning and you go, I think that's over. I think we're done. And that is weird. Anyway, so I was living in Hendon. I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment. I at the weekend I had the wedding of some friends who got married, and so that had been quite a busy weekend. And then I woke up on Monday morning just thinking, I remember it was quite hot, and just thinking, now I've just got to wait for a month, and I don't know what I'm gonna, and so I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just start on a new book. 9:30 on the Monday morning, Penguin called with an offer for the book. At that point, I was working part-time for a charity, and there was another 2 publishers started bidding, and that was going up by increments of, at that point, I think it was like £7,000. And at that stage in my life, I was literally, my take home after tax was like £850 a month. So it was, I was not making very much money, and this was going up by these increments. And I think about lunchtime, we said, my agent went, right, this is the bid, this is who's got it, what do you think? And I was like, okay, right. And so Penguin won that auction. And then I went to walk in the park near my apartment, and I remember just like walking round and round the park, and every time I got back to like the road back to my apartment, I was like, one more time round, one more time. Just trying to get my head around the enormous, like, not enormity because that's bad, but the hugeness of what had just happened. It felt like, sunshine inside my head. I don't think anybody who has not tried to write a novel without any, can know how hard that first book is. You just have to do it on sheer, I would say self-belief, except in many cases, and probably, and in my case, it was somewhat self-flagellation. It was just, I remember waking up most mornings and going, come on, what have you fucking done in your life if you haven't worked on this book? Get to work. I know that, I'm supposed to say, oh yeah, no, I had like mantras and affirmations and whatever, but no, I got stuff done by being mean to myself. I try not to do that anymore, but that was my mid-20s, and that was how I was doing it.
Wow.
So yeah, and then I went over to some friends for dinner that evening. We got a takeaway, like takeout, which was unusual for me at that stage because I usually couldn't afford it. And I was doing that thing where you go to the grocery store just as it's closing and you get the stuff that's been marked down. So getting a takeout was quite a big deal. And yeah, we sat in the garden, me and my friends, just going, wow. I do know also at one point that day, I had to send an email to my agent to say, no, I had to call her up and I said, can you please send me an email to say what just happened? Because I keep thinking I might have had a psychotic break and like I might have just imagined it. So she did do that, and I do still have that email in my inbox.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, make sure you never delete that.
Oh yeah. No, that's like whenever I manage to clear out my inbox a bit, which, as you know, I have not really managed to do this year. There it is at the bottom, that email from my agent going, yeah, but you've sold your first book to Penguin.
Wonderful. Let me move on.
It was wonderful. Yeah.
And did you know at the time, I have a sense, so for example, I love this interview with Matt Damon on the Graham Norton show, when he won his first Oscar, he talks about how he felt so lucky at such a young age, that your worthiness can't come from such an accomplishment. You have to carry it with you and engage with it.
Right. Did I know that? I mean, I think at that point, I felt like, well, I think one of the things was that my life was about to break open because I was about to realize that some very substantial parts of it were not working. So I think to have found one thing that I wanted to be good at, and it turned out that I was sufficiently good at for more than one publisher to want to publish my book. I thought, okay, so it's not exactly self-worth that comes from achievement, but maybe a sense of knowing who you are that comes from having thought that I might be good at something and then having discovered that indeed I was good at it.
Yes.
Yeah. So a sort of like there's something solid to hold on to in that very strange time. God.
Nice. Nice. Now in reviewing your total body of work, I was stunned at how many different people and organizations you've worked with, from video games to Doctor Who novel to a zombie running app with viral popularity. And of course, being mentored by, to borrow a Loki reference, She Who Will Not Be Named.
Yeah.
Now, what do your collaborations empower you to achieve that you couldn't achieve on your own?
Oh, gosh, I love all your questions. They're all wonderful.
Thank you.
I think best when I'm talking. And sometimes on the page. I think those two things. I have a number of close collaborators with whom I have what I would call a sort of ongoing 10 or 20 or more year conversation where I'm not kidding. Like my writing partner on the zombie running game, Rebecca Levine, who was she was an editor of Doctor Who novels. So she was the first person who commissioned Russell T Davies to write Doctor Who, which that's a claim to fame.
Wow.
So we talk a lot. And we send each other interesting things. And, sometimes we disagree about things, and that's always interesting. And we have with similar perspectives, but in somewhat different enough that we can kind of spark off each other. And so we've worked on the zombie game together. Like I wrote the first season because I was the co-creator. I came up with the idea for it. But she came on to work on it with me from season 2 onwards. And so, yeah, we've been working together on that for 12 years now. And we knew each other before that, but there's just so much. It's like having an extra brain. And I think it works both ways, right? She uses my brain and I use her brain. Almost. I mean, obviously we all love computer metaphors these days, but you can, plug 2 computers in. I have another couple of friends like that where we're just always talking. And when we're sending each other little links or an interesting article or whatever, it's part of a much bigger conversation. And we're, reinvestigating and rethinking about various things about the world. And if you have 2 or 3 brains running together on some questions, you come up with amazing stuff. And then it's not about agreeing. And I think, if I have a sort of thought about the world, it's we're too interested in agreeing. You have to kind of no, unless you decide that you're going to be an orthodox believer in something and you're just going to accept all of the orthodox lines as given, you're going to disagree with everybody about something, because we all have our individual unique experiences, and just don't be frightened of it. I mean, obviously, if the person is a Nazi, then yeah, probably do not tolerate that disagreement. But other than that, I think, how can one even describe it? It's getting more than one brain working on. It's like more than double, right? It's a multiplier.
Exponential.
So, right, it's exponential, exactly. So I would say I've been incredibly lucky in finding smart people to talk to about things. And maybe I'm also a good collaborator. And maybe partly that is because, number one, I spent a long time figuring out what parts of the Orthodox Jewish tradition I was going to keep. And yeah, and so, and like, I'm still friends with my Orthodox Jewish family, and you just kind of get used to the idea that we're not going to agree on everything, but we still love each other, and there's still much to talk about.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Let me ask you something else. Now, in a blog post from March 16th, 2006, we're really stepping back.
Oh, wow.
I did a lot of research for you.
Published.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah. Wow.
So you discussed the paradigm shift for yourself once your first book was published, and how you facing a single negative line in an otherwise great review can hit you like a jolt of electricity. And yet at the end of the blog post, you wrote, quote, "Once I got over the initial shock of someone producing any criticism of my book, I've found it's made me work harder and to greater effect. There's something freeing about criticism. It allows you to try new things instead of sticking to the same old ones in search of the same dog bone of praise," like you just said. So while the horror might be unspeakable, I haven't found it utterly pointless, end quote. And so many of your stories are about marginalized people discovering their worthiness through their limits and differences. And in what ways have you found your own worthiness through your limitations and differences?
Oh my gosh. All right. First of all, it's lovely when you encounter something that you wrote nearly 20 years ago and you still go, yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true. These days, when you publish a book, you know that there's, oh, right, I've done it a few times now. There's going to be at least one really terrible review. And that's how you know you're in the game. That's how you know you're in it. So I'm not looking forward to it, but it is true that once you know that you're going to be just fine, even if not everybody likes everything you're going to do, you are much more free. So yeah, I think that's been a journey of the past 20 years, has been to go, oh, quite a lot of people are not going to like what I do, and that's fine. I had a conversation with well, yeah, I can't actually say who it is because I protect my personal life stuff, but sure. A child in my life who was thinking that somebody else was angry with me or annoyed with me, and I said, well, maybe that person is annoyed with me. I can be quite annoying. And that just came out of my mouth, and I went, oh, I actually agree with that thing that just came out of my mouth. I can be quite annoying. I can be a bit sanctimonious, I'm quite intellectual, maybe a bit clever, maybe a little bit showy off. It's fine. Everybody's a bit annoying sometimes. And, the people that I love the most are sometimes really quite annoying. In fact, when you love somebody a lot and you spend a lot of time with them, you get to find out all the ways they're really annoying.
It's so true. I once heard somebody say about friendships and romantic relationships, if you never have any conflict, it means you're not being honest.
That's probably true. Maybe there are some people out there who are just, I don't know, maybe I don't know. I can't know about everybody's relationship, right? So I can't make a blanket statement about what all relationships are like. But certainly for me, if I never have any conflict with anybody, it would be because I don't respect them enough to tell them what I really think. And this also is part of the Jewish tradition. There's a concept of an argument for the sake of heaven, which means if you're arguing like openly and sincerely about a subject that is important, that is a blessed thing. That is like heaven is pleased with you. And I think that's a great idea. That's that could, like, the concept of what makes a good argument. How do you argue sincerely and in good faith, and not just trying to win, but trying to examine the question together? I mean, I think that's great, and it's not as much done as it should be.
And I love the phrase "an argument for the sake of heaven." That's great. So, you stated on your website's FAQ that we should not presume your novels are written by, quote, someone who has managed to extract herself from the systems of sexism and control. And I wondered, in what ways do you continue to engage with that system of sexism and control? What obstacles do you face, and what solutions do you embrace?
Right. Yeah, inside my brain, I still have all the sexist stuff that I got taught as a child, and all the things that exist in the culture around us.
Yeah.
And not only that, the racist stuff, the homophobic stuff, the transphobic stuff, it's all in there. And one of the key lessons about life, there we go, I have something important to say about life, is to not mistake your thoughts for yourself. Which is to say, because of the culture that we live in, random shit is going to be constantly going through there. Like, if you ever try to meditate, you will see how much nonsense is happening in your brain. And the fact that you sometimes have a thought like, I don't know, if I looked like her, my life would be perfect. I think that's a normal thought that all women have sometimes. The fact that you have that thought doesn't mean anything about who you are in the world. That's just a thought that exists in the culture and has like taken root in your brain. So yeah, like some mornings I don't know, look at myself and go, oh God, I've got to appear on stage now, and like I don't like how I look. Or I see somebody else and I go, oh, she's so beautiful. And it's just normal. It's just normal. So you can't control the first thought, but if you're lucky and work on it, you can control the second thought. And the second thought, if you go for, oh, what's going on, baby? Like then you get somewhere very positive where you go, okay, these are some bad dark thoughts. Yeah, I mean, look, I grew up in a religion with literal patriarchs. I grew up being taught some pretty disturbing stuff in some ways about the relationship between men and women. In some ways, quite positive stuff, but in some ways, disturbing stuff. And yeah, I think controlling the second thought, or like allowing the first thought to be, yeah, that's, the first thought comes and the second thought is go, yeah, I came by that honestly. That's how I was raised. Right now, what do I really think?
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, I'm glad that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, not believing your thoughts is one of the key life skills.
And to have compassion for that first thought. It doesn't have to be the last thought.
Right. It doesn't have to be the last thought. You're not a bad person. I mean, if you have terrible thoughts and then you act on them, then yes, that's bad. If you have a terrible thought and then you go, oh, what's up, baby? Then you'll be okay. You'll basically be okay.
I think so. And, even with like transphobic stuff, for me, it's like, I understand where that feeling or that thought comes from because I have the same things. It's just the problem comes when that's the end point for the person, when they don't think, well, what's next?
Right. Where you just think to yourself, this is not really what I believe. I mean, God knows, anybody can do this to themselves, right? I don't know if you've ever had a look at Stormfront. Do you know what Stormfront is?
I know what
Don't go and
Stormfront
look.
is.
Right. Okay. All right. And we know what like 4chan is. I've never actually been on 4chan. I've just seen screenshots. But in the early days of the internet, I'm talking like 2000, 2001, 2002, way back. I remember going to look at Stormfront, and obviously I'm a Jewish person. And to start out with, I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. And then I probably looked at it for about 2 hours, but I was young and this was a long time ago, and I noted the feet, like basically it was like ha 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 ha, until suddenly like that I was really frightened. And also I had just put 2 hours worth of that shit into my head, and like it's then impossible to get it out. So there are some people out there who believe that there are like little marks on packages of food that is kosher, in the same way that it might say gluten-free, whatever. Sure. It's like a label for people who need that information, free from shellfish, whatever it might be. And there were people on Stormfront who thought that meant that this company was like in the pocket of the Jews. And what can you do? Once you've seen people talking about that thought is going to be in your head. And, it will just sometimes pop up. And I guess maybe also as a novelist, my job is to try and get inside other people's minds, or to like empathetically project myself into other people. If you're an empathetic person, this will happen to you more easily, that you will be able to see other people's perspectives, which is lovely, but also you will then not be able to get other people's perspectives out of your head. And
that makes sense.
That's not fun.
And you kind of commented a little deeper on that in a New York Times interview from 2018. You said that the bigger question for you isn't how do you avoid being a victim, it's how do you avoid being a Nazi, because it's kind of arrogance and vanity to think that we're immune to that just because we can look at other things from a historical perspective.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have a friend who is from the Netherlands, and she the Netherlands did not do well in the Holocaust. Like they gave up a lot of their Jewish population, as we know from the death of Anne Frank. They have the most famous Holocaust victim in the world comes from the Netherlands. Anyway, my friend from the Netherlands says that there's a saying where, everybody would have been in the resistance, which is to say, like, we all believe now that we would be in the resistance, but the evidence is no, most of us would roll over. And I was having a conversation about this the other day, actually, about how do you try to not be a Nazi? I think probably one of the top ways is you can't expect yourself on the day that evil regimes come to power for that to be the first day that you ever speak out about anything. If that is your first opportunity, it's probably not going to happen. This is just my theory, but I think probably if you accustom yourself to saying, no, that's wrong, again and again and again, when you see small things that are wrong, then that might be easier. I think it's very difficult because we would all, the existence of the Holocaust is a moral challenge to the nature of humanity. I mean, the existence of other things as well, obviously. It's just the Holocaust is the one that affected my family. And I think we would all like to have that reassurance that we were going to be great people in that. And so we're all kind of constantly looking around for ways to prove that to ourselves. And I do also think that there's a sort of weird, like I've tweeted about it and now I don't need to do anything else about it. That also is potentially not great. There's a feeling that we would like to be able to prove to ourselves that we are good people, and potentially something that's happening is technology or social media is selling us an ersatz version of that, where that also, we've come by that honestly. We didn't create social media. It exists there and it's trying to go, come on, you can be a good person in this way, and then you can have that feeling.
Right.
At least I can know about myself that I would publish novels about things that I think are bad, but equally never get complacent that you know how you would be in the face of an evil regime.
And also to face the fear that we may look back and only then see how wrong we were.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think there are two different things there, right? So number one, maybe we could stop expecting ever to feel secure. And maybe the lack of security is quite good for us in this. Like if we are able to say to ourselves, yeah, I don't know, then we can like look at what we're doing in our lives every day and go, oh, what do I actually think about it? And also to be able to say, yeah, I haven't always acted well. You know, I look back on, I don't know, think something I said to a friend that was not kind, something, you know, ways like all sorts of different things, just general grumpiness, and go, yeah, I have not acted well always. And then I'm going to tell you another Jewish thing, right? So there's in Judaism, there's Yom Kippur, which comes around once a year, the Day of Atonement, and you fast all day, and like there's prayers. And something that I find very reassuring about it is that there is no level of good you can be where like you get a call and somebody says, hey, you don't have to fast on Yom Kippur this year. Like you're going to have to do that every year because guaranteed we're going to fuck up again and again and again. Guaranteed. That is not where your value as a human comes from, in like never fucking up. Do you know the concept? I got it from the psychologist Philippa Perry, but I don't know where it comes from, of relationships are formed by rupture and repair. So that's how it happens, which is true, is if you never had a rupture with somebody and you weren't able to repair it, the relationship is not as strong as if you rupture and repair and rupture and repair. So yeah, the idea of having a relationship with yourself where you can go, you fucked that up, and you can go, yeah, I did. Yeah. It's very reassuring.
That's great. Wow. Let me ask you about a different aspect. I wanted to ask you about Disobedience, and to a similar extent, the movie adaptation is really a stunning work. And referring again to your answers on your website's FAQ, I just felt quite moved by your explanation of how a person's entire paradigm shifts once puberty begins. And even for asexual people like myself, and I have these intersections with trans and intersex people, we still face physical changes. And more to the point, we have to negotiate how we fit into a cultural paradigm based on how we are perceived by the people around us. And I couldn't help but also notice your old Guardian interview from 2010 shared that around the time of 9/11, you were in love with a man who then came out to you as gay. And indeed, that sort of puts you in the position of the husband in Disobedience who has to grapple with his wife coming out. And I wondered, my question, how did these paradigm shifting elements of sexuality inform your storytelling decisions in Disobedience and beyond?
Right. So yeah, Disobedience came out of my time that I was living in New York. I knew a bunch of people who came out, like Orthodox Jewish people who came out after 9/11. I think a lot of people wanted to live more authentically. I was in love with a gay man, or I was in love with a man who came out to me. And I'm trying to answer your question about how this informed the storytelling, because some of it was that there was some urgent stuff I needed to work out. And so I come to the page basically every day, ready to work through what's going on with me that day. And that has been my practice for somewhere between 20 and 25 years now. And I also have therapy. Writing is not therapy, but writing does a different job of metabolizing my life for me, of putting it out somewhere that I can look at it. Yeah. So it's true that look, the story in Disobedience is made up, but the dynamics, I swapped the genders on those dynamics and went, okay, how does it, and also, like, I fancy girls. I've been in relationships with women in the past. And so in that sense, it's not swap, because it's also about my experiences. I don't think I could have known then that I was writing myself out of Orthodox Judaism. And I don't think I would have been able to, when I sat down to make the work, know where the work was going to take me. And really, that's why I make the work, because I have some places to go and I want to get there, and I want to take other people with me. And I think other people have those places to get to too. So I think where I got to at the end of that book was the start of a journey, actually. Where I got to was saying, I think right at the end of the book, there's you don't have to, there's no obligation on you to live out all the things that you could be. But if you choose to, then you will experience more of yourself, really. And like, why would we not want to experience more of ourselves? Well, like, maybe some people don't, and that's also fine. But yeah, you can ignore it, but at the same time, the self can be a journey. The self can be an invitation to a journey. And mostly, I think people who are doing that are very interesting people. And I like to interact with humans who are involved in that journey. And not necessarily so much with people who never felt like they needed to do that.
Yes, it's people answering big questions about identity. It's just interesting.
It's just interesting. And then you get to a certain point. I feel like I've got to that point where, like, I'm nearly 50 now. And I think, I think some of my big questions are kind of answered, but some are not. And some of them are kind of halfway through. I definitely feel like, I mean, maybe I'm just deceiving myself. That will be fun. I definitely feel like there are no kind of big unturned rocks in my life anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, which would be exciting. But then I think maybe that's also part of the second half of life, which is to go, okay, so what can I show and teach, and who can I like meet, and what other experiences can I have? But yeah, the discovery of the self is the start of everything.
Wow. Well, normally I would tell people I hope this doesn't happen, but for you to feel excited by such a thing, I hope you get blindsided by a moment.
Well, you just never know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily even in big ways, but you just never know when you'll hear something or encounter something, you'll go, I am really drawn to that, and I don't really know why. And it might be a piece of music or a piece of art, and you go, okay, now I need to go and spend 3 years investigating that because it's extraordinary. Those things, I hope that never finishes.
Wonderful. Let me ask you about the power. You published one of the best, I think, take down the patriarchy books from within the patriarchy, and in some sense revealing that what we see as the patriarchy doesn't in itself have anything to do with men. women and non-binary and agender people can be just as toxic. And now, did you meet any resistance to your concept for the power? And if so, how did you cope or negotiate those conflicts? And were those conflicts, in a sense, resurrected when it came time to adapt the book into a TV show?
Yeah, I did meet with, I mean, there's certainly, you know, in terms of bad reviews, there is a bad review out there of the novel, which I think was in The Spectator, which is quite a you know, well-respected feminist novelist. Just hated it. just thought that I had written a book about how women are evil, and yeah, I think the understanding that you have there, that what I'm saying is, yeah, we're all embroiled in this, and actually that the patriarchy is another way of saying we privilege the ability to do violence, and we think you need to be treated more nicely if you have the capacity to do violence. And yeah,
That's a wonderful way to say it, the privilege to do violence.
yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm afraid I wrote that book, and by the end of it went, oh, I think the pacifists are right. This is annoying, but I think they are right. I still have some quibbles with that. I'm not 100%,
Yeah.
because you have to do something about Nazis. So like, you can't just lie down and let them kill you. But at the same time, if we were to not accept that the ability to, you know, hit somebody very hard was a reason that you should ever do what they say, and if nobody were to accept that, then it would be over. That would just be all over. Anyway, so yeah, I think there are some people for whom feminism means saying that women are better than men, and I don't agree with that. And I think that is a conversation that is constantly surprising to some people who encounter the book. I don't want to like get into, you know, saying who, but certainly it's a conversation that I've had to have from time to time on the TV show as well, which is to go, number one, women are not better than men. You know, people say, oh, but you know, if we were led by women, wouldn't everything be kinder and gentler? And I go, I grew up in the UK under Margaret Thatcher, so no. You know, it depends who you are.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, could I ask you about a couple of changes that happened for the TV show that might touch on that?
Of course.
And one is that you made Margot happily married, and her husband got a heck of a lot more time in the story. And so what went into having her start off happily married and then having Margot's husband leave her? What went into the decision, and do you like how it turned out?
Listen, I think John Leguizamo gave an amazing performance, and he's incredibly adorable in that, you know, everybody wants to be married to,
and so
to
clearly
Robin.
trans-allied from his earlier work.
Right, correct. He's a great guy. He was incredible on set. He gave a wonderful performance. I think I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this, because everybody involved worked incredibly hard, and obviously the show had to be shot twice because we were shooting during pandemic, and you know, we mounted and then we had to come down and then we mounted again. So like, I just think there was a huge amount of really hard work, and you know, I don't want to take that away from anybody. I think there was a lot of passion to make the show. One of the conventions of TV is that you have a family somewhere in there, which is a family that you can relate to. This is a complicated, weird, interesting idea, given that, like, I don't come from a TV family, I don't have a TV family, and yet that's just the convention of TV, is that is how a lot of it is made, in the same way that the convention of a theater is that you have a proscenium arch and the audience sits there and then the players are back here. So I think how that played on screen was very beautiful. I suppose I was involved in conversations where I'm like, well, I don't know anything about TV. I've never done it before. So I'm willing to accept that this is the way that it ought to be done. And I don't know, it feels like a TV family is, I'm sure there are PhDs out there about it. It in itself, it's like an incredibly sort of weird, interesting concept. Like what is that? And you know, TV as a form is a very domestic form. We watch it in our home, around whoever it is that we live with. So what is the TV family doing to us? Why are we doing it? I don't necessarily know the answers to those questions. You know, the end result of that was in the book, she was divorced, and in the show, she's married. And that's how TV works, apparently.
Sure. And like you said, not to take away from what John did with the character, which was wonderful, it does complicate some of the story, but well, let me ask you about a different aspect. Because you made a powerful clarification in the show about where the power comes from, a kind of sustained elevated estrogen and the long-term impact on the body, and how that affects everybody, not just cisgender women's bodies, but also in a way that activates the skein for intersex people, trans people, agender people, non-binary people. And it's the patriarchy that insists the power must have a binary division. What was it like pushing for those changes in this show, and did you face any pushback?
I was delighted to push for those changes. I'm very proud of that. It's something that I think, you know, I was working on the book from 2011 to like 2015, and two things. I would say it was not on my radar, as I think it was not on a lot of people's radar, as an issue that a reader wants to hear about. And you know, I'd like when I realized that people wanted to hear about it, I thought, well, this is great because we can put this into the show. So I think that my role in the world is to use my values to decide what I'm going to do. And I don't want a segment of my audience and readers to feel like there's no place for people like them in my work, particularly if they're asking what their place would be in the work. And fundamentally, if you're going to give people a superpower, why not be generous? So I would also say, like, I'm going to say this to you because these are some very thoughtful questions, and I think, like, you know, there's a place for a thoughtful answer. It's not that it never occurred to me to put a trans character into the novel. I think when I was thinking about it, I was looking for the things that would, like, the ways in which the lives that would be most different afterwards. And I thought, oh, I think this would just like be another way in which there would be prejudice and people would say your body is not the correct kind of body. Now, I think there is much more to say about it than that. And I was very lucky. I had some nice conversations on Twitter about this, which I know these days that sounds like mad. But yeah, some people talked me through it and were like, well, how about if, you know, the first you know of being intersex is that you develop a skein? What about that? Or how about if, like, you knew, but it had no effect on your body, and but now it really does have an effect on your body? Those are really interesting, you know, understandings about. So, you know, I wish I had known that when I wrote the book, but I didn't. And I'm delighted to have got it into the show. We have wonderful trans actress, Daniela Vega, who plays Sister Maria, and she gave a stunning performance. And I'm thrilled that we got it, that is how I wanted it to be. And I would say, look, I live in the UK. The UK is a bit of a disaster right now in terms of like rights for trans people. I mean, no, I don't want to misspeak, the rights are still in the statute books, but there are certainly calls to take them away. And in my opinion, that is bad. And trans people deserve all the protections of the law, just like everybody else. So I don't know if you know this, that the Tory party has been making noises about removing. So like there's the Equalities Act, which is there's various different protected characteristics. And for example, you can't be fired for being Jewish. And that seems quite important. And you also can't be fired for being trans. And the Tory government would like apparently to remove trans from the list. Yeah. Yikes.
Yikes.
Well, yeah, hopefully we'll be able to vote them out before they do that. Yeah.
Cross everything.
Yeah, no, they are a bad government, and I have no hesitation in saying that.
Wow.
We had a stupid referendum. We wanted to do a stupid Brexit, which turns out to have been economically incredibly bad for the country. Well, we knew that before we started.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we had to elect a government full of stupid people.
Yeah.
And that's what we got. We got a government full of stupid people during a global pandemic. And they're also trying to cling on to power, pulling all the levers they know about, which is transphobia and racism, basically.
Yeah.
So it's not great.
Yeah. Well,
however,
yeah,
just get rid of them. I feel very hopeful that we can get rid of them.
Nice.
Yeah. So coming from the UK, you know, I think it was great that I wrote the novel and I was able to say, no, this is, I think, how it works, and we should have a trans character in there. And I think if I had not been saying it that strongly, there probably would have been a bit of a, oh, well, this is a difficult issue and we're not sure that we really want to go near it. But, you know, often it just takes one person saying consistently, this is how we're doing it.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, it's great not only to have you as an ally, but to find out you're on the queer spectrum yourself.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm yeah. I don't know if I've ever like found a word that applies, but I fancy lots of different kinds of people.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. Well, it's not like you need a label. Are we gonna, can you tell me if we're gonna get a season 2, and will we ever get a novelized sequel to The Power?
Right. I don't know. Obviously there was that big writers' strike, and there's still an actors' strike.
Yeah.
So I think nobody is rushing to like recommission stuff until you could actually make a show. So look, you know, it's been, as everybody knows, a lot of stuff got commissioned and made during the pandemic, which is now being cancelled because, as it turns out, we all have other things to do other than watching box sets. So, you know, if not, I would love to. I would love to do another season. If not, it's been a really wonderful experience, and you know, I've learned a lot. It's great that it's out there. Disappointing if we don't get to finish the story.
There's so much
like,
story left to tell. Do you think that you might ever write a
know.
sequel if we don't get the TV show?
Might. You know, it's interesting. I have a couple more things to say. So I guess what we'll have to wait and see is like whether enough like steam builds up inside me that it can only be let out via some kind of electrocution novel. But I'm certainly open to finding that that's the case. Look, Margaret came back and wrote the Testaments, whatever, 30 years after The Handmaid's Tale. So yeah, you just got to like wait for the head of steam to build up.
And then years later, I mean, there was I don't want to badmouth it, but there was a film adaptation before the acclaimed TV show.
There was a film that was not faithful to the soul.
So just in that sense, you never know. It could be years from now, but this wouldn't be the last adaptation. Even if you got more seasons, it wouldn't be the last adaptation.
Right. I hope not. I hope not. I think it's really important to be able to imagine the world different and to be able to like really think through what it would mean for women to be more physically powerful than men. And if really believe that all the women would be just lovely.
Right.
Those are important questions. So, maybe I'll have what Margaret had, which is like somebody who loved the book when they were a teenager, then became powerful in TV, and then went and made the show. So, just got to keep trucking for the next 25 years.
Yeah. Well, okay, I see what time it is. I have a few fun questions for you. And
Go on,
then,
do me some fun questions and we'll do it quickly.
Yes. So what is your favorite word?
Oh, well, the word that just came to mind was mellifluous, so I'm going to give you that.
Oh my God. What does mellifluous mean?
Mellifluous means pleasingly rhythmic and sleek.
Nice.
So it's a mellifluous word, actually.
How nice. And
Yeah.
what is your least favorite word?
My least favorite word. Oh, mucus.
My gosh, that is gross. And
Yeah.
what is a sound you love?
Oh, a sound. There are quite a few sounds that I love. I love the sound of rain falling on a metal roof.
Me too. Oh, I actually put noise on like that to go to sleep.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah. Well,
I love
the
the sound of
other
a train also. There you go.
Oh, yes.
You can have two. I love the sound of a train in the distance, and I also like a sleeper train where you can fall asleep with the sound of a train all around you.
What is a sound you hate?
Drills. Oh, even better, leaf blowers. Fuck leaf blowers. I wish they would ban them. They're terrible.
What is something that fills you with confidence?
Fills me with confidence. I do seem to be filled with confidence. I think the answer is feeling that I'm doing the right thing. I think that is the truthful, if annoying answer.
Yeah.
Like when I know that I'm doing the right thing, then I'm fine. And,
yeah.
I'm thinking about things that are bigger than myself.
Well, would that mean that what is something that fills you with fear?
The degradation of the public sphere on the internet. On social media. Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're facing the entire world at once.
And it does. And I think the norms out there right now are really bad. And the side taking is really bad. And the lack of space for reflection and learning and nuance and subtlety and generosity, open-heartedness, all of those things, that fills me with fear.
Wow. Same. If you could take any book, movie, or piece of music with you to a desert island, what would you take?
I would probably take the Brandenburg Concerto No. 4.
All right. Now I'll have to look it up afterward.
Yeah, go and listen to that. I think, ideally, I would like to take a huge number of books and movies and music. But if I'm only allowed one of any of those things, I think I would be able to enjoy thinking over movies and books that I've watched and seen, but listening to the music would in itself, like, that's something that I can't do unless it's there.
That's so true. Okay, two more questions. One, did you ever find a store that sells Kreftik?
I know where the store is, but I have not. But I did see Kreftik in somebody's house, and the answer is it was a kind of breakfast cereal.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and Naomi, the last question, how would you like to be remembered?
Somebody who tried to help, I think. I think so. You know, it's interesting. We've just had the very, very sad early death of Matthew Perry, who, you know, he gave a really nice performance in Friends, but like mostly he seems like he was somebody who really tried to help. And that feels like a life well lived, if people can say that about you, that you really honestly tried to help. And maybe you succeeded in helping.
I think so too. And you know, there's a page from his memoir going around now where he says, "I know when I die, people will mostly remember me for Friends, but what I hope they remember most about me and discuss from time to time is that whenever somebody came to me to say I'm in bad shape and I need help with my recovery, he was the person that said, I cannot always do this for myself, but I know exactly how to do it for you."
Right. Right. I found that incredibly moving.
I did too.
And I thought, yeah, that is the thing. Yeah. You know, hopefully one or two of my ideas will end up being useful to the world.
Yeah.
That would be nice. But that's not up to me. I wrote this a while ago, and I really think about it a lot. The meaning of our lives may not be known until long after we're gone. We can't possibly know what that is. I mean, like my sort of terrible example here is, it's not terrible, it's just kind of, I don't know, melodramatic maybe. Like if what you were turned out to be like the grandmother of Hitler, there's no way to know that in your own life, right? So I think we can't know how our lives will land. We can't know what the way that we touch somebody, like the words that we shared, a thought that we gave, will end up affecting someone. I hope it will end up having helped.
For what it's worth, if you needed to know just one person, you have helped me and you have inspired me.
Oh, well, I'm very glad to hear that. That is what I'm trying to do. Now, my friends who are therapists would say to me, for God's sake, people can only help themselves, Naomi. So this in itself is not a good ambition. But there we go. That's where I've got to so far.
Wonderful. Well, Naomi, thank you for giving me so much of your time. I'm glad we could finally schedule this. As far as what will happen, I'm going to release the long form with, of course, some edits and cuts and graphics and stuff for Queer History. And then I also have a spot for a very condensed version that'll come out through Script Magazine.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to talk. And yeah, well, I hope we get to do it again sometime.
Me too. Let's do it again sometime soon, Naomi. I hope you have a good rest of your day, okay?
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Out for the